The metal corridors of Station Nexus Prime hummed with the chatter of a dozen alien species, their voices creating a symphony of mockery that followed Maya Chen wherever she went. The young human woman kept her head down as she pushed her cleaning cart through the merchant district, her worn jumpsuit marking her as nothing more than maintenance staff in the eyes of the galaxy's elite. "Look at the little human," chittered Klex, a mantis-like Zephyrian trader, his compound eyes gleaming with amusement, so small and fragile. "I heard their entire species was conquered by the Dominion without even a proper fight." His companions erupted in clicking laughter. A hulking Gorvak mercenary leaned against his weapon stall, massive arms crossed over his chest. "Humans are good for cleaning and simple labor. Nothing more. Their homeworld fell in 3 standard days. 3 days. My people held out for 3 years against the Dominion fleet." Maya's grip tightened on her mop handle, but she said nothing. She'd learned long ago that revealing the truth only brought more trouble. Better to let them believe the lies. The carefully constructed story that humanity had simply rolled over when the Galactic Dominion came knocking. An elegant Etherian diplomat glided past, her translucent form shimmering with disdain. "The humans were granted protectorate status out of pity," she remarked to her aide. "Such a primitive species. They barely had faster-than-light travel when we found them. Really, allowing them to work on stations like this is charity." The aide, a reptilian Sorok, hissed his agreement. "I heard this one doesn't even speak properly. Probably doesn't understand half of what we're saying." Maya continued her work, methodically cleaning the floors while the aliens discussed her people as if she were deaf. She'd perfected the art of appearing invisible, of being so unremarkable that conversations flowed around her like water around a stone. It was a useful skill, one that had served her well during her years in exile. "The human homeworld was pathetic," continued another voice, this one belonging to a crystalline Quartzian. "No natural defenses, no unified government, no real military to speak of. The Dominion Admiral said it was the easiest conquest in his career." Maya paused for just a moment, remembering the real story, how Earth's governments had indeed fallen quickly, but not from weakness. They'd fallen because someone had systematically dismantled their communication networks, turned their own defense systems against them, and orchestrated the perfect storm of chaos that made resistance impossible. Someone who had wanted humanity to appear weak and broken to the galaxy at large. Someone who had her reasons. The Gorvak mercenary was warming to his topic now, his voice booming across the merchant stalls. "I met a Dominion captain once who was there during the conquest. He said the humans didn't even try to fight back, just surrendered like cowards when the first ships appeared." A new voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to a wealthy Nexarian merchant whose blue skin glowed with expensive bio-augmentations. "Well, what did you expect? Look at them. Weak bone structure, poor reflexes, limited telepathic abilities. They're barely evolved beyond their primitive ancestors." Maya's jaw clenched slightly, but she forced herself to remain calm. She'd heard it all before, countless times across countless stations and worlds. The galaxy had accepted the story of humanity's swift defeat because it fit their preconceptions perfectly. Humans were young, technologically inferior, politically fractured. Of course they would crumble at the first sign of superior force. None of them suspected that the conquest of Earth had been orchestrated from within. "The funniest part," said the Etherian diplomat, having circled back to continue her gossip, "is that they actually think they might someday earn full citizenship in the Dominion. As if beings who couldn't even defend their own world could ever contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization." Maya finished cleaning the floor section and began moving toward the next area, her movement slow and deliberate. She passed by a group of young Zephyrian warriors who were boasting about their latest training exercises. "We simulated a battle against human forces," one of them was saying. "The computer needed to create 5,000 human units just to make it challenging against 50 of our soldiers. Even then, we achieved total victory in under an hour." His friends clicked their approval, mandibles chattering with amusement. "Humans are useful for one thing," another added. "They make excellent servants. No pride to get in the way, no dangerous ambitions. Perfect for menial labor." As Maya worked, she allowed herself a small, invisible smile. Let them think what they wanted. Let them believe that humanity was broken, defeated, and harmless. It made everything so much easier. She reached the end of the corridor and began setting up to clean the next section. Here, near the diplomatic quarter, the conversations turned to more serious matters. A group of Dominion officials were discussing recent unrest in the outer territories. "The rebellion is growing bolder," one of them was saying, his voice tinged with concern. "They've managed to liberate 3 systems in the past month. Our intelligence suggests they have inside information about our operations." "Impossible," another replied. "Our security protocols are absolute. No one could penetrate our networks without leaving traces." Maya continued her work, listening carefully while maintaining her facade of simple-minded concentration on her tasks. The officials moved closer, their voices dropping to what they thought was a confidential whisper. "There have been rumors," the first official continued, "about someone calling themselves the Ghost. A saboteur who can slip through our systems like they don't exist. Some say it's just propaganda, but the pattern of attacks suggests a level of sophistication we've never encountered." The second official scoffed. "Ghost stories and rebel propaganda. Mark my words, it's just lucky strikes and stolen intelligence. When we catch these terrorists, they'll prove to be nothing more than desperate aliens with obsolete equipment." Maya smiled again, this time allowing the expression to linger for just a moment longer. If only they knew that their mysterious ghost was standing right there, hidden in plain sight behind the facade of a simple human cleaning woman. The same woman who had once brought down governments and toppled dynasties, now reduced to scrubbing floors while the galaxy mocked her people. But that was exactly where she wanted to be. In the shadows, underestimated and forgotten, free to work without interference. The rebellion needed resources, intelligence, and strategic strikes against Dominion infrastructure. And there was no better position for gathering that intelligence than as an invisible servant who could walk freely through the most secure facilities in Dominion space. The officials finished their conversation and moved on, never noticing the human woman who had heard every word. Maya returned to her cleaning, already planning how to use this new information. 3 days later, Maya found herself in the most secure section of Station Nexus Prime, her maintenance credentials granting her access to areas that would require weeks of planning for any conventional spy to reach. The irony wasn't lost on her that the Dominion's own prejudices had created the perfect cover for her operations. She pushed her cart through the administrative wing, where Dominion bureaucrats managed the exploitation of dozens of worlds. The Nexarian administrator, Director Vex, was holding court in his office, surrounded by holographic displays showing resource extraction quotas from conquered territories. "The humans on Colony 7 are falling behind on their quotas again," Vex was complaining to his assistant. "Perhaps we need to reduce their food rations to motivate them properly." Maya paused to empty a waste receptacle near the open office door, her movements methodical and unremarkable. The assistant, a thin Sauroch named Kess, hissed his agreement. "Humans are naturally lazy, Director. They require constant supervision to achieve even basic productivity." "Indeed," Vex replied, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with irritation. "Sometimes I wonder why we bother keeping them alive at all. The mining equipment becomes more efficient every year. Soon we won't need biological workers at all." As Maya continued her cleaning routine, she discreetly activated the small scanner hidden in her cleaning supplies. The device began copying every data file within range, including the complete resource extraction schedules for 17 human colonies. The information would be invaluable to the rebellion's planning committee. "Sir," Kess continued, "there's been another incident on Colony 7. The humans claim their children are becoming sick from the mining operations, but our medical scans show nothing conclusive." Director Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Human children are naturally weak. If they cannot adapt to honest work, then perhaps they are not meant to survive." "Natural selection in action." Maya's hand trembled almost imperceptibly as she gripped her cleaning tool tighter. She'd seen the reports from Colony 7 herself, smuggled through rebellion channels. The children weren't just sick. They were dying from exposure to toxic minerals that the Dominion knew were dangerous but continued to mine anyway because they were profitable. "Perhaps we should request a medical evaluation from the Etherian specialists," Kess suggested tentatively. "Absolutely not," Vex snapped. "The cost would be astronomical, and for what? To save a few human spawn? The breeding populations on these colonies are more than sufficient to replace any losses. It's simple mathematics." Maya finished her task and moved to the next office, her scanner now containing enough evidence to justify a major rebellion strike against the Dominion's mining operations. But she forced herself to maintain her routine, to continue the charade of the simple cleaning woman who understood nothing of the horrors being casually discussed around her. In the next office, she encountered Commander Thorne, a high-ranking Gorvac military officer who was reviewing deployment schedules. His massive frame dwarfed the standard-sized furniture as he spoke with his aide about recent rebellion activities. "The terrorists hit another supply convoy last week," Thorne was saying, his voice a low growl. "They knew exactly which ships to target, exactly when they would be most vulnerable. Either we have a security leak or they're getting very lucky very often." The aide, another Gorvac but smaller and younger, shifted nervously. "Perhaps the humans are passing information to the rebellion? They have contacts throughout Dominion space." Thorne laughed, a sound like boulders grinding together. "The humans? Don't be ridiculous. They can barely organize their own work shifts, let alone coordinate intelligence operations. No, this has to be coming from someone with real capability. Probably disgruntled Zephyrians or maybe even rogue Nexarians." Maya smiled inwardly as she dusted the shelves near Thorne's desk. The Dominion's own prejudices were their greatest weakness. They literally could not conceive that the species they considered most inferior might be responsible for their most sophisticated intelligence failures. "What about this ghost character the intelligence reports keep mentioning?" the aide asked. "Propaganda," Thorne replied dismissively. "The rebellion wants us to believe they have some master strategist, some invisible puppet master pulling strings throughout Dominion space. It's psychological warfare, nothing more. When we finally corner these terrorists, we'll find they're just desperate aliens making lucky guesses." As Maya worked, she accessed the commander's personal files through a data port, cleverly disguised as a cleaning attachment. Military deployment schedules, troop movements, supply routes, all of it flowed into her hidden storage devices. The Rebellion Strategic Planning Committee would have a field day with this intelligence. Thorne continued his conversation, oblivious to the fact that his greatest enemy was standing 3 feet away from him. "The truth is, the rebellion is running out of steam. These attacks are getting smaller and less coordinated. Give it another year and they'll collapse entirely." Maya almost laughed out loud at that assessment. The rebellion's recent attacks had indeed been smaller in scale, but that was because she had been advising them to focus on precision strikes rather than large-scale battles. Why waste resources on dramatic gestures when surgical cuts could accomplish more with less risk? "Sir," the aide said hesitantly, "what if the rumors about the ghost are true? What if there really is someone coordinating these attacks from within our own infrastructure?" Thorne's expression darkened. "Then we'll find them and make an example that will discourage anyone else from similar thoughts. But mark my words, when we catch this supposed mastermind, they'll turn out to be far less impressive than the legends suggest." Maya finished her cleaning and moved toward the door, but Thorne's next words stopped her cold. "Besides," he added casually, "we're implementing new security protocols next week. Biometric scans for all personnel, including maintenance staff. No more relying on simple identification cards. If there is a spy among us, these new measures will flush them out quickly." Maya continued walking, her expression unchanged, but her mind was racing. Biometric scans would be a serious problem. While she had managed to alter her identification records years ago, biological markers were much harder to fake. She would need to either find a way around the new security measures or accelerate her timeline significantly. As she rounded the corner into the next corridor, she nearly collided with a group of Etherian diplomats who were deep in conversation about trade negotiations. They barely acknowledged her presence, continuing their discussion as if she were furniture. "The human worlds are becoming more profitable every quarter," one of them was saying. "Their population provides an excellent source of manual labor, and their agricultural capacity is surprisingly robust for such a primitive species." "Yes," another agreed. "But we must be careful not to extract resources too quickly. We want to maintain sustainable exploitation for the long term. Dead humans produce no value." Maya pushed her cart past them, already formulating plans for her next moves. The biometric security upgrade changed everything. She would need to complete her current intelligence-gathering operations and find a way to extract herself from the station without triggering suspicions. But first, there was one more area she needed to access: the central communications hub. If she could plant her surveillance programs in the station's main computer systems, the rebellion would have access to real-time intelligence for months to come, even after she was forced to abandon her position. The only question was whether she could complete the mission before the new security measures trapped her. Time was running out and the stakes had never been higher. The galaxy continued to mock the weak human girl, never suspecting that she was about to strike at the very heart of their empire. The central communications hub of Station Nexus Prime operated around the clock, its massive quantum processors handling data streams from across the Dominion. Maya had studied the facility's layout for months, memorizing guard rotations and maintenance schedules with the patience of someone who understood that one mistake could end everything. She approached the security checkpoint at 300 station time, when the skeleton crew would be at their most relaxed. The Saurak guard barely glanced at her identification as she pushed her cart toward the restricted areas. "Routine cleaning," she said in the broken standard that the aliens expected from humans. "Very dirty today, much work." The guard hissed dismissively and waved her through. "Make it quick, human, and don't touch anything important." Maya nodded and shuffled forward, playing the part of the simple-minded worker to perfection. Behind her facade, however, her mind was cataloging every detail of the facility's defenses: motion sensors in the corners, pressure plates beneath the floor panels, automated turrets disguised as environmental controls. The Dominion had spared no expense in protecting their most sensitive installations. But they had also made a critical error in their security design. Like most of the galaxy's species, they focused on preventing infiltration by their equals, other advanced aliens with comparable technology and capabilities. They had never seriously considered the possibility that their greatest threat might come from the species they considered least dangerous. She moved through the outer sections of the communications hub, cleaning surfaces that probably hadn't seen a speck of dust in years. The few technicians on duty ignored her completely, discussing technical matters in languages they assumed she couldn't understand. "The new encryption protocols are finally operational," a Nexarian technician was telling his colleague. "Even if the rebellion intercepts our transmissions, they'll never be able to decode them without the quantum keys." His partner, a crystalline Quartzian, resonated agreement. "The human colonies will be particularly affected. Without access to intersystem communications, they won't be able to coordinate any resistance activities." Maya absorbed this information while scrubbing a wall panel that hid one of the facility's main data conduits. The rebellion had indeed been struggling with the Dominion's improved encryption, but that was about to change. The small device she was about to plant would give them access to the quantum keys themselves. As she worked, more technicians arrived for the shift change. Their conversation turned to recent intelligence reports about rebellion activities. "Command is convinced the terrorists have inside help," one of them was saying. "The precision of their recent attacks suggests access to classified operational data." "Impossible," another replied. "Our security screening is absolute. Every employee undergoes deep psychological evaluation and continuous monitoring. There's no way a spy could maintain cover for more than a few days." Maya allowed herself a small smile as she continued her work. She had been operating under deep cover for over 3 years now, moving from station to station and facility to facility like a ghost. The Dominion's security was indeed formidable, but it was designed to catch sophisticated threats, not someone masquerading as a simple maintenance worker. "What about the new biometric protocols?" asked a younger technician. "Will they really be able to detect infiltrators?" "Absolutely," came the confident reply. "Starting next week, every person on this station will be subjected to full biological scanning. DNA analysis, retinal patterns, neural mapping, everything. If there are any spies among us, the new system will identify them immediately." Maya's hand paused for just a moment as she processed this information. The timeline was even tighter than she had feared. She would need to complete her mission and extract herself within days, not weeks. She moved deeper into the facility, her cleaning routine providing perfect cover for her actual objective. The central server core lay behind multiple layers of security. But Maya had spent months studying the facility's blueprints and identifying the single point of weakness in their defenses. The main air filtration system required regular maintenance, and the access tunnels that serviced it ran directly past the server core. More importantly, those tunnels were considered too small and inconvenient for most alien species to navigate comfortably. The Dominion's engineers had never considered that a human's smaller stature might actually be an advantage. Maya waited until the central hub was at its quietest, then slipped into a maintenance alcove and began opening the access panel to the filtration system. Her movements were quick and precise, guided by muscle memory developed through countless similar operations. The tunnel was cramped and dark, barely wide enough for her shoulders, but she had prepared for this. Years of physical conditioning had made her capable of moving through spaces that would challenge even other humans. She crawled forward slowly, using a miniaturized light to navigate the maze of conduits and support structures. After 20 minutes of careful movement, she reached her destination, a junction point where the main data lines converged before entering the server core. Here, behind layers of armor plating and shielding, lay the heart of the Dominion's communications network. Maya extracted her most sophisticated piece of equipment from its hiding place within her cleaning supplies. The device was no larger than her thumb, but it contained technology that had taken the rebellion's best scientists years to develop. Once installed, it would provide real-time access to everything that passed through the station's networks. The installation process required delicate work with quantum-level precision. One mistake could trigger security alerts that would bring the entire station down on her head. Maya worked slowly and methodically, her hands steady despite the confined space and the enormous risks involved. As she worked, she could hear voices echoing through the ventilation system from the communications hub below. The night shift was discussing the latest reports from the front lines of the Dominion's ongoing expansion. The Altarian resistance finally collapsed yesterday, someone was saying. Their government formally surrendered after we demonstrated the new orbital bombardment platforms. Good, came the reply. The Altarians were always too proud for their own good. Now they can join the humans in learning the benefits of Dominion protection. Maya's jaw tightened as she continued her work. The Altarians had been fighting the Dominion for over 2 years, their crystal cities holding out against overwhelming odds. The fact that they had finally fallen meant that entire civilizations were now being systematically enslaved. But that was exactly why her mission was so important. Every piece of intelligence she gathered, every operation she enabled, brought the rebellion one step closer to striking back effectively. The galaxy might mock humanity as weak and defeated, but they had no idea what humans were capable of when they had nothing left to lose. She finished installing the surveillance device and began the careful process of concealing its presence. The device would remain dormant for several days before activating, giving her time to escape before the rebellion began using the intelligence it would provide. As she prepared to retreat through the maintenance tunnel, Maya heard footsteps approaching the communications hub below. A new shift was arriving early, and she could hear the authoritative voice of a senior officer addressing the technicians. Beginning tomorrow, the officer was announcing, all personnel will undergo enhanced security screening. This includes full biometric analysis and neural pattern mapping. Anyone with irregular readings will be detained for intensive investigation. Maya moved quickly through the tunnel, her mission complete, but her escape more urgent than ever. She had perhaps 18 hours before the new security measures would make her position untenable. It was time to activate the extraction plan she had hoped never to use. Maya returned to her quarters in the station's lower levels, where maintenance workers and other essential personnel were housed in cramped utilitarian spaces. The Dominion provided just enough comfort to keep their human workers functional, but no more than that. Her room was barely larger than a storage closet, containing only a narrow bed, a small desk, and basic hygiene facilities. To any observer, it was the living space of exactly what she appeared to be, a simple human worker with no ambitions beyond her daily cleaning duties. But Maya had spent months carefully modifying the space, creating hidden compartments and communication arrays that would have impressed the rebellion's best engineers. She activated her encrypted communication system, a quantum transmitter disguised as a faulty light fixture. The signal would bounce through 17 relay points before reaching its destination, making it virtually impossible to trace. After a few moments, a familiar voice responded through her hidden earpiece. "Ghost to control," she whispered, using the code name that had become legend throughout Rebellion space. "Control here," came the immediate reply. "We've been monitoring Dominion communications. Something big is happening." "Confirmed," Maya responded. They're implementing comprehensive biometric screening starting tomorrow. My position here is compromised. Need immediate extraction. There was a pause on the other end. Maya could imagine the frantic activity at Rebellion Command as they processed the implications of losing their most valuable intelligence asset. Understood. Ghost. We have a cargo freighter en route to the station. Can you reach Docking Bay 7 within 12 hours? Maya considered the layout of the station and the security protocols she would need to navigate. Negative. Station security will be tripled during the transition to new protocols. Need alternate extraction. What about the mining shuttle schedule? Next transport to Colony 7 departs in 6 hours. Maya's blood ran cold at the suggestion. Colony 7 was where the Dominion was slowly poisoning human children with toxic mining operations. Returning there would place her in the heart of one of the Dominion's most brutal exploitation sites. But it would also provide the perfect cover. A human maintenance worker returning to help with expanded operations would attract no attention whatsoever. Confirmed, she said finally. Preparing for extraction via mining transport. We'll need pickup from Colony 7 within 48 hours. Understood. Safe travels, Ghost. The galaxy owes you more than it will ever know. Maya deactivated the communication system and began the process of erasing her presence from the station. Every device she had planted, every hidden compartment she had created, every trace of her true activities, all of it had to be eliminated without leaving evidence that could be used to track the rebellion's operations. As she worked, she reflected on the irony of her situation. The galaxy mocked humans as weak and primitive, never suspecting that one of them had been systematically dismantling their empire from within. She had toppled governments, brought down corrupt dynasties, and orchestrated the liberation of entire star systems, all while maintaining the facade of a simple cleaning woman. The transformation had begun years ago, during the early days of Earth's conquest. Maya had been a different person then. Dr. Maya Chen, a systems analyst working for the Earth Defense Network. When the Dominion fleet arrived, she had been one of the few to recognize that humanity's only chance for survival lay not in direct resistance, but in appearing utterly defeated while building the infrastructure for a long-term insurgency. She had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment imaginable, going deep undercover within Dominion space itself, gathering intelligence and resources that would eventually allow humanity to strike back. The process had required her to give up everything, her identity, her family, her very sense of self, in service of a plan that might take decades to bear fruit. But it had worked. The rebellion that now threatened the Dominion's stability had been built on intelligence she had provided, using resources she had diverted, following strategic plans she had helped develop. The galaxy might see her as nothing more than a menial worker, but she was actually one of the most wanted fugitives in Dominion space, if they had ever suspected her true identity. Maya finished packing her few possessions and prepared to leave her quarters for the last time. She had grown oddly fond of this cramped space despite its limitations. It had been her sanctuary during the long months of maintaining her cover, the one place where she could briefly drop her facade and remember who she really was. As she made her way through the station's corridors toward the docking bays, she passed many of the same aliens who had mocked her over the past months. They barely acknowledged her presence, too focused on their own affairs to notice the departure of a simple maintenance worker. Director Vex was complaining to his assistant about productivity reports from the outer colonies. Commander Thorne was reviewing military deployments with his staff. The Etherian diplomats were discussing trade negotiations with the kind of casual callousness that treated entire civilizations as economic resources. None of them realized they were watching their greatest enemy walk past them for the final time. Maya reached the docking bay where the mining transport was preparing for departure. The ship was exactly what she had expected, a utilitarian cargo vessel designed to transport workers and equipment to the Dominion's extraction sites. The human passengers were already boarding, their faces showing the resignation of people who had long since given up hope of anything better. The Gorvak captain barely glanced at her identification as she joined the boarding queue. "Another cleaner for Colony 7? He grunted. "Good. The facilities there are getting filthy with all the increased mining operations." Maya nodded submissively and shuffled aboard with the other human passengers. As the ship prepared for departure, she took a final look at Station Nexus Prime through the viewport. In just a few days, The rebellion would begin receiving intelligence from the surveillance device she had planted, giving them unprecedented insight into Dominion operations. The aliens on that station would continue their mockery of humanity, never knowing that they had harbored their greatest enemy in their very midst. They would implement their new security measures with confidence, believing that they had finally closed the last gaps in their defenses. They had no idea that their human cleaning woman had been the legendary Ghost all along, and that her departure marked not an end but a new beginning. The intelligence she had gathered would enable strikes that would shake the Dominion to its core, and her next assignment would take her even deeper into the heart of enemy territory. As the transport ship jumped to hyperspace, Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy might mock the human girl, but they were about to learn exactly what happened when they underestimated the species they had tried to break. The real war was just beginning. Colony 7 materialized through the transport's viewport like a vision of industrial hell. The planet's surface was scarred by massive open-pit mining operations, their depths glowing with the toxic radiance of rare minerals that powered the Dominion's war machine. Enormous atmospheric processors belched clouds of poisonous gas into the sky, turning the once blue atmosphere a sickly yellow-green. Maya pressed her face to the small window, her heart aching as she watched human workers moving like ants across the ravaged landscape. These were her people, reduced to slave labor in service of the empire that had conquered their world. Children who should have been playing in gardens now worked in protective suits that were never quite protective enough. The transport captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention, human cargo. Colony 7 approach in 10 minutes. Remember your work assignments and productivity quotas. The Dominion provides for those who serve faithfully." Maya gathered her meager possessions and joined the other passengers as they prepared for landing. The humans around her moved with the mechanical precision of people who had learned that showing emotion or initiative only brought punishment. Their faces were masks of studied neutrality, revealing nothing of whatever thoughts might lie beneath. As they disembarked onto the planet's surface, Maya was struck by the sheer scale of the mining operations. The Dominion had turned an entire world into an extraction facility, strip mining continents and poisoning ecosystems with ruthless efficiency. Massive hover platforms carried loads of processed ore toward orbital elevators that stretched up into the planet's polluted sky. An Exarian overseer checked their work assignments, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with board authority. When he reached Maya, he barely glanced at her documentation. "Maintenance worker, Facility Block 7, he noted. "Report to Supervisor Krell. Your quarters are in Housing Unit 12. Don't be late for tomorrow's shift." Maya nodded and followed the other new arrivals toward the housing complex. The buildings were prefabricated structures designed for maximum efficiency rather than comfort, their gray walls rising from the poisoned soil like tombstones. As she walked, she observed the colony's security arrangements, noting patrol patterns and surveillance systems with the trained eye of someone who had spent years infiltrating enemy installations. Housing Unit 12 was exactly what she had expected. A barrack-style building filled with small rooms barely large enough for a single person. Maya was assigned to room 247, a space even smaller than her quarters on the station. But within minutes of arriving, she began the familiar process of creating hidden storage areas and communication systems. That evening, as the colony's exhausted workers tried to rest after their 16-hour shifts, Maya activated her concealed transmitter and contacted Rebellion Command. "Ghost to control. Package delivered safely. Assessment of target facility in progress. Control here. We show increased Dominion security throughout this sector. Extraction window may be limited. Understood. Beginning intelligence gathering immediately. This location has strategic value beyond current mission parameters." Maya spent the next 2 days establishing her cover while secretly mapping the colony's infrastructure. Her official assignment involved maintaining cleaning equipment for the mining operations, but her real focus was on identifying the facility's most critical vulnerabilities. What she discovered exceeded even her worst expectations. The Dominion wasn't just exploiting Colony 7's mineral resources. They were using it as a testing ground for new forms of biological warfare. The toxic exposure that was killing human children wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate experiment to study the effects of various chemical weapons on human physiology. Hidden, Laboratories beneath the main mining complex were documenting every aspect of human biological response to different toxins. Medical data was being transmitted daily to research facilities throughout Dominion space, where scientists were developing new ways to incapacitate or eliminate human populations, should they ever prove troublesome. Maya felt a cold rage building within her as she accessed these files through carefully planted surveillance devices. The aliens who mocked humanity as weak and harmless were simultaneously conducting genocide experiments on human children. The hypocrisy was staggering, but it also provided her with exactly the intelligence she needed. On her third day at the colony, Maya was assigned to clean the administrative offices where Dominion officials coordinated the mining operations. Here she encountered the same casual cruelty she had observed throughout Dominion space, but amplified by the direct involvement in human suffering. The mortality rates are within acceptable parameters, Dr. Zyloth, a Sorok scientist, was reporting to his colleagues. The human specimens show remarkable resilience to Type 7 toxins, though their offspring display significantly higher susceptibility. His assistant, a crystalline Quartzian, resonated agreement. The breeding population remains stable despite the experimental exposures. We should be able to maintain current testing protocols for at least another standard year. Maya continued her cleaning, while recording every word of their conversation. The intelligence she was gathering would provide the rebellion with devastating evidence of Dominion war crimes. But more importantly, it would also reveal the locations of the secret research facilities throughout their territory. Dr. Zyloth, the Quartzian continued, the High Command has requested accelerated testing of the new neural toxins. They want results before the next expansion wave begins. Excellent, Zyloth replied. The human nervous system provides an ideal testing platform. Their neural pathways are similar enough to other sentient species to provide useful data, but different enough that we can experiment without concerns about broader applicability. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she gripped her cleaning tool, but she forced herself to maintain her facade. These monsters were discussing the torture of her people, as if they were laboratory animals, all while preparing weapons that would eventually be used against other species throughout the galaxy. But as she listened, Maya also began to recognize an opportunity. The research data being generated at Colony 7 was being transmitted to facilities throughout Dominion space. If she could access the transmission protocols, she could potentially trace those signals back to their destinations, revealing the locations of secret weapons laboratories that the rebellion had been trying to find for years. That night, Maya accessed the colony's main communication array through the same ventilation system approach she had used on the station. The facility's security was focused on preventing escape attempts by the human population, not sophisticated infiltration by trained operatives. She spent hours copying research files and transmission logs, building a comprehensive map of the Dominion's biological weapons network. The data revealed a conspiracy of staggering scope. Dozens of worlds throughout Dominion space were being used for weapons testing, with subject populations chosen based on their perceived expendability. Humans were just one target among many. The Altarians, who had recently surrendered, were already being transported to testing facilities. Other conquered species were being subjected to different experimental protocols, all designed to develop more efficient methods of control and elimination. As Maya completed her intelligence gathering, she realized that her mission had evolved far beyond simple reconnaissance. The data she had collected could expose the entire biological weapons program, potentially triggering a galaxy-wide uprising against Dominion rule. But first, she had to survive long enough to transmit the information. Her extraction window was rapidly closing, and Dominion security forces were becoming increasingly suspicious of any unusual activity. The next 24 hours would determine whether her discoveries would reach the rebellion or die with her on this poisoned world. As dawn broke over Colony 7, painting the toxic sky in shades of sickly yellow, Maya prepared for the most dangerous phase of her mission. The galaxy still mocked the human girl, but they were about to learn that their greatest mistake had been underestimating the depths of human determination when everything they loved was threatened. The alarm klaxons began wailing at 0400 hours, their harsh sound echoing across Colony 7's industrial landscape. Maya jolted awake in her cramped quarters, instantly alert as emergency lights bathed the housing complex in pulsing red. Through her small window, She could see Dominion security forces mobilizing with military precision. "All personnel report to designated stations immediately," commanded a mechanized voice over the colony's communication system. "This is not a drill. Unauthorized transmission detected. Security sweep in progress." Maya's blood ran cold. Her data extraction from the previous night had been discovered. The massive intelligence files she had copied must have triggered some kind of monitoring system, alerting the Dominion to unusual network activity. She had perhaps minutes before security forces reached the housing units. Moving with practiced efficiency, Maya activated her emergency protocols. The hidden transmitter disguised as ventilation equipment began uploading compressed data packets to a series of relay satellites positioned throughout the system. Even if she was captured, the evidence of Dominion war crimes would reach Rebellion Command. She destroyed her surveillance equipment using acid compounds hidden in her cleaning supplies, ensuring that no trace of her activities could be found. Her false identity documents went into a small incinerator built into the room's waste disposal system. Within 3 minutes, room 247 appeared to contain nothing more than the possessions of a simple maintenance worker. But Maya knew it wouldn't be enough. The new biometric security protocols that had forced her to leave the station were already being implemented here. The Dominion security forces conducting the sweep would be equipped with advanced scanning, equipment capable of detecting any biological inconsistencies in her cover identity. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside as armored Gorvak soldiers began their room-by-room search. Maya could hear doors being forced open and occupants being dragged into the hallway for immediate screening. The methodical approach would reach her location within minutes. She activated one final device hidden within her work uniform, a quantum transmitter no larger than a button that would send her real identity and location to Rebellion intelligence. If she didn't survive the next hour, at least her handlers would know what had happened to their most valuable operative. The door to room 247 exploded inward as 2 massive Gorvak soldiers entered with weapons drawn. Behind them came a Nexarian technician carrying sophisticated scanning equipment, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with anticipation. "Human designation M7749, the lead soldier growled, reading from a datapad. "Step forward for immediate biological verification." Maya shuffled forward with the same submissive posture she had maintained for 3 years, her eyes downcast and her movements carefully clumsy. The Nexarian technician activated his scanner, running the device over her body while studying the readouts with professional interest. "Neural patterns appear normal for human baseline," he reported. "DNA markers consistent with Earth origin. No obvious surgical modifications or implanted technology detected." The Gorvak soldier leaned closer, his massive frame casting shadows across the small room. "What is your function at this facility, human?" "Cleaning," Maya replied in the broken standard she had perfected. "Work hard. Follow orders. No trouble. When did you arrive at Colony 7? 3 days ago. Come from Station Nexus Prime. Supervisor Krell assigned me work." The technician frowned as he studied his scanner readings more carefully. "There's something unusual here. The cognitive patterns are more complex than typical for this classification of worker." Maya felt her heart rate increase, but forced herself to maintain her facade of confused simplicity. "Not understand big words. Please speak simple. Run a deep neural scan," the soldier ordered. "If she's been neurally enhanced or conditioned, we need to know about it." The technician activated a more sophisticated scanning mode, and Maya knew she was in serious trouble. Deep neural scans could reveal evidence of advanced training and education that would be impossible to explain for a simple maintenance worker. Her years of infiltration were about to end in capture or death, but as the scanner began its more intensive analysis, the lights in the housing complex suddenly went out. Emergency power activated a moment later, but the brief interruption had been enough to reset the scanning equipment. In the confusion, Maya heard the distinctive sound of shuttle engines approaching the colony. "Sir," crackled a voice over the soldier's communication device, "we have incoming vessels on unauthorized approach vectors. Multiple ships, unknown configuration." The Gorvak commander's expression shifted from suspicion to alarm. "Rebellion attack?" "Unknown, sir. They're not responding to our hails and their approach pattern suggests hostile intent." Maya suppressed a smile as she recognized what was happening. The data she had transmitted the previous night had included detailed intelligence about Colony 7's defenses and the war crimes being committed there. Rebellion Command had clearly decided that immediate action was required, both to rescue their operative and to shut down the biological weapons testing facility. Lock down all human personnel, the commander ordered. Deploy defensive positions around the primary facilities. We'll deal with the security sweep after we repel this attack. The soldiers rushed from the room, leaving Maya alone with the confused technician. She waited until she heard their footsteps disappearing down the corridor, then moved with lethal precision. The technician never had time to raise an alarm before she rendered him unconscious with techniques learned during her years as a covert operative. Maya quickly stripped the unconscious, an Xarian of his equipment and access codes, then made her way toward the colony's communication center. If the rebellion was launching an assault, they would need real-time intelligence about Dominion defensive positions and the locations of human civilians who needed to be protected during the fighting. The corridors were filled with confusion as Dominion personnel rushed to respond to the unexpected attack. Maya moved through the chaos like a ghost, her maintenance uniform providing perfect camouflage while she accessed restricted areas and uploaded tactical data to the approaching rebellion forces. Through the facility's external sensors, she could see the battle developing in Colony 7's poisoned sky. Sleek rebellion fighters engaged Dominion interceptors in deadly aerial combat, while larger vessels moved to target the mining operation's critical infrastructure. The attack was precisely coordinated, striking at exactly the points Maya had identified as most vulnerable. But the real objective became clear as she reached the central communication array. The rebellion wasn't just attacking Colony 7. They were preparing to broadcast Maya's evidence of Dominion war crimes to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The biological weapons research, the genocide experiments, the systematic torture of conquered populations, all of it would be revealed in a transmission that the Dominion would be unable to stop or suppress. Maya began the complex process of overriding the communication system's security protocols, using access codes she had memorized from dozens of different facilities. As explosions rocked the colony around her, she prepared to expose the truth that would bring down the empire that had mocked humanity as weak and defenseless. The galaxy was about to learn exactly what happened when they underestimated the species that had nothing left to lose. The human girl they had dismissed as harmless was about to topple their greatest dynasty, and this time, the whole universe would be watching. The central communication array of Colony 7 hummed with power as Maya completed the final sequence of commands that would change the course of galactic history. Outside, the battle raged between rebellion forces and Dominion defenders, explosions lighting up the toxic sky in brilliant flashes of destruction. But inside the heavily shielded communication center, a different kind of warfare was taking place. Maya's fingers moved across the control interfaces with surgical precision, bypassing security protocols that had been designed by the galaxy's finest engineers. Every system she had infiltrated over the past 3 years had taught her something new about Dominion technology. And now that accumulated knowledge was being put to its ultimate test. Ghost to all rebellion frequencies, she transmitted on encrypted channels. Package ready for delivery. Initiating galactic broadcast in 60 seconds. The response came immediately from multiple sources as rebellion commanders throughout the system acknowledged her signal. Confirmed, Ghost. All units in position to amplify and relay transmission. The galaxy is about to learn the truth. Maya activated the quantum transmission array, hijacking the Dominion's own communication network to ensure that her message would reach every inhabited world simultaneously. The evidence she had gathered, detailed documentation of biological weapons testing, genocide experiments, and systematic torture of conquered populations, began flowing through subspace channels at faster than light speeds. As the transmission commenced, Maya felt a profound sense of completion. For 3 years she had endured mockery and dismissal, playing the role of a simple human cleaning woman while secretly gathering the intelligence that would expose the Dominion's greatest crimes. Now finally, the truth would be revealed. The communication center's main display lit up with incoming signals from across Dominion space as her broadcast reached its destinations. On world after world, alien populations were learning about the systematic atrocities being committed in their name. The reactions were immediate and explosive. On Nexus Prime, Director Vex stared in horror at the evidence of his own war crimes displayed on public information networks. The same alien who had casually discussed reducing food rations to human workers was now watching recordings of himself authorizing biological weapons tests on children. Commander Thorne's military headquarters descended into chaos as evidence of illegal weapons. Programs spread through every communication channel. The proud Gorvak warrior who had dismissed humans as weak and cowardly was confronted with documented proof of genocide operations that violated every treaty and galactic law. Throughout Dominion space, the carefully constructed narrative of benevolent conquest and protective oversight crumbled in the face of undeniable evidence. The species that had mocked humanity as primitive and defenseless were forced to confront the reality that their empire was built on systematic atrocity. But Maya's broadcast did more than expose individual crimes. It revealed the complete structure of the Dominion's biological weapons network, providing precise coordinates for secret research facilities on dozens of worlds. Within hours, rebellion forces throughout the galaxy began launching coordinated strikes against these installations, liberating imprisoned populations and destroying weapons that could have been used to subjugate entire species. As the transmission continued, Maya monitored the reactions pouring in from across known space. On the Etherian homeworld, massive protests erupted as citizens demanded an end to their government's participation in Dominion activities. The crystalline Quartzians, who had prided themselves on their analytical objectivity, found their society convulsing with guilt over their role in enabling systematic torture. Even species that had never been directly conquered by the Dominion were expressing outrage and horror at the evidence of what had been done to humanity and other subject populations. The galactic community that had accepted the story of humanity's swift defeat was now learning that the conquest had been orchestrated through betrayal, and that the subsequent exploitation had constituted ongoing crimes against sentience itself. The door to the communication center exploded inward as Dominion security forces finally breached the facility's defenses. But Maya was no longer the submissive maintenance worker they expected to find. Standing at the center of the quantum transmission array, surrounded by holographic displays showing the collapse of Dominion authority throughout the galaxy, she had transformed into something else entirely. Dr. Maya Chen, she said calmly, using her real name for the first time in 3 years. Former systems analyst for the Earth Defense Network. Current strategic intelligence coordinator for the Galactic Liberation Front. You may know me better as the Ghost. The Gorvak soldiers who had been preparing to arrest a simple human worker found themselves facing one of the most wanted fugitives in Dominion space. The revelation that their greatest enemy had been hiding in plain sight, masquerading as the very type of worker they had dismissed as harmless, sent shockwaves through their ranks. "Impossible," gasped the Nexarian officer leading the security team. "You're just a maintenance worker. Humans are incapable of this level of sophistication." Maya smiled, the expression containing 3 years of suppressed satisfaction. "That was always your greatest weakness. You could never conceive that the species you considered most inferior might be capable of your complete destruction." The transmission array behind her continued broadcasting evidence of Dominion crimes to every corner of the galaxy. Reports were already coming in of Dominion officials being arrested by their own populations, of allied species withdrawing from treaties, of rebellions erupting on previously pacified worlds. "The human homeworld fell in 3 days," Maya continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had helped plan that very defeat. "But not because we were weak, because we chose to appear defeated while building the infrastructure for a war that would last decades. Every day you mocked us. Every time you dismissed us as harmless, you gave us another opportunity to gather intelligence and prepare for this moment." Through the facility's external sensors, Maya could see rebellion forces securing the colony's critical infrastructure. Human civilians were being evacuated from the toxic mining operations, while the biological weapons laboratories were being systematically destroyed. The same children who had been used as test subjects for Dominion weapons would soon breathe clean air on worlds that would welcome them as liberated beings rather than enslaved. "Resources? You want to know the truth about humanity?" Maya asked as the security forces hesitated, unsure how to process the complete reversal of everything they thought they understood. "We're not the weak, primitive species you believed us to be. We're the species that infiltrated your most secure facilities, gathered evidence of your greatest crimes, and coordinated a galactic uprising that will bring down your empire. The communication array completed its final transmission cycle, ensuring that every piece of evidence had been distributed throughout known space. Maya looked at the bewildered Dominion officers and felt a moment of almost sympathetic amusement at their confusion. The galaxy spent 3 years mocking the human girl who cleaned their floors and emptied their waste containers, she said. They never suspected that the same girl had once toppled dynasties and would soon topple theirs as well. Outside, the sounds of battle were diminishing as Dominion resistance collapsed throughout the system. The evidence Maya had broadcast was already being analyzed by courts and tribunals on dozens of worlds, beginning legal proceedings that would destroy the Dominion's legitimacy forever. As rebellion soldiers entered the communication center to secure the facility, Maya allowed herself one final moment of reflection. The masquerade was over. The simple maintenance worker who had been invisible to an entire galaxy was about to become the most famous human in galactic history, but more importantly, the children of Colony 7 and countless other worlds would grow up free. In a galaxy where strength was no longer measured by the ability to mock and oppress the seemingly powerless, but by the wisdom to recognize that those who appear weakest might actually be the strongest of all. The human girl they had mocked was about to inherit the galaxy they had tried to rule through fear. And this time she would build something better,